There's something absolutely chilling about the emergency call that changed everything we thought we knew about our closest relatives. A frantic voice screaming for help, begging police to hurry, because a chimpanzee was literally tearing someone apart. But here's what makes this even more disturbing. The chimp doing the damage wasn't some wild beast gone rogue. This was a family pet who had sat at dinner tables, worn clothes, and been treated like a beloved child for years. How does something so eerily similar to us become capable of such calculated brutality? The answer lies in a terrifying combination of superhuman strength and human-like intelligence that we're only just beginning to understand. Chimpanzees share 98.8% of our DNA, yet they possess abilities that make them living weapons wrapped in deceptively familiar packages. They can remember things we forget in seconds, strategize warfare campaigns that would impress military tacticians, and form social bonds so complex they rival our own societies. Yet, this same intelligence drives them to commit acts of violence so methodical and brutal that even seasoned researchers lose sleep thinking about what they've witnessed. What we've discovered about chimp cognition is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. These aren't just smart animals. They're creatures whose mental capabilities sometimes exceed our own, but whose moral framework operates by rules we're still trying to decode. The question isn't whether chimps are intelligent enough to understand the consequences of their actions. The question is whether we're ready to accept what that intelligence actually means. That innocent-looking face hiding behind those expressive eyes. It belongs to an animal that can crush your skull with its bare hands, while remembering every detail of your relationship for decades. And the most unnerving part is that they know exactly what they're doing when they choose to use that power. The first thing that draws people to chimpanzees is exactly what makes them so dangerous. They look like us, they act like us, and they seem to understand us in ways that feel almost magical. This resemblance runs far deeper than just appearance. Chimps display emotions we recognize, form friendships that last for years, and even seem to grieve their lost companions. When you watch a mother chimp cradling her baby or see two friends grooming each other with obvious affection, it's nearly impossible not to project human feelings onto their behaviors. But this is where our biggest mistake begins. The 98.8% genetic similarity we share with chimps creates a dangerous illusion that we're dealing with hairy humans instead of wild animals operating by completely different rules. People see a chimp's expressive face and assume they're looking at a creature with human-like emotional responses and moral reasoning. They watch chimps use tools and communicate with each other, then leap to the conclusion that these animals can be integrated into human society like unusually intelligent pets. This fundamental misunderstanding has led to tragedy after tragedy. Families adopt baby chimps, raise them in human environments, and convince themselves they're nurturing, gentle, childlike beings. They dress them up, teach them human behaviors, and create elaborate fantasy worlds where wild animals become family members. The chimps seem to play along, learning to open doors, sit at tables, and even appear in commercials and television shows. Yet beneath this carefully constructed illusion lies a creature whose strength could literally tear you limb from limb without breaking a sweat. Every gentle touch from those seemingly harmless hands comes from an animal capable of exerting enough force to crush bones. Every playful interaction masks the reality that you're dealing with a being whose natural instincts include warfare, territorial violence, and social dominance established through physical intimidation. The tragedy isn't that chimps are deceptive or evil. The tragedy is that humans consistently refuse to acknowledge what these animals actually are. We see what we want to see instead of recognizing that similarity doesn't equal compatibility, and intelligence doesn't guarantee peaceful coexistence. But what exactly makes chimpanzees so physically formidable? The answer lies in evolutionary adaptations that have created living powerhouses disguised in deceptively familiar packages. While humans evolved for endurance and efficiency, chimps developed for explosive strength and arboreal mastery. Every aspect of their anatomy reflects this fundamental difference in survival strategy. Consider grip strength. one of the most shocking disparities between our species. The average healthy human male can squeeze with about 73 pounds of force, while women typically measure around 44 pounds. These numbers seem reasonable for creatures who primarily use their hands for tool manipulation and fine motor tasks. Chimpanzees operate on a completely different scale. Conservative estimates put adult chimp grip strength at around 440 pounds of force, while some sources claim figures reaching 730 pounds. To put this in perspective, a chimp could crush a human hand like we might squeeze a grape. That casual pat on the back from a friendly chimp, it's delivered by an arm capable of generating forces that would hospitalize a human. Their hands aren't just strong. They're evolutionary marvels designed for life in the canopy, where a single slip means a potentially fatal fall. This incredible strength stems from fundamental differences in muscle composition. Human muscle consists of about 40% fast-twitch fibers, the type responsible for explosive movements and powerful contractions. Chimpanzee muscle contains 67% fast-twitch fibers, creating a muscular system optimized for sudden bursts of incredible power. Pound for pound, chimp muscles generate 1.5 times more force than human muscles, backed up by denser bones and stronger tendons that can handle the tremendous stresses their strength creates. Their unique knuckle-walking locomotion further enhances their upper body development. Unlike humans, who walk upright and rely primarily on leg strength, chimps use their arms for both locomotion and manipulation. This constant engagement has produced shoulders, arms, and hands that function like biological hydraulic systems, capable of generating forces that seem almost supernatural to human observers. Then, there are those teeth. Male chimps possess canines that extend well beyond anything in human anatomy, creating weapons specifically designed for combat. These aren't just oversized eating utensils. They're evolutionary tools of warfare, capable of inflicting devastating injuries with surgical precision. Combined with jaw muscles powerful enough to deliver bone-crushing bites, chimps possess natural weapons that make them formidable opponents even without considering their incredible strength. Yet physical prowess represents only half of what makes chimpanzees so remarkable and potentially dangerous. Their cognitive abilities are equally impressive and far more unsettling once you understand their implications. While the raw power of chimpanzees might seem like their most impressive feature, their mental capabilities are actually far more extraordinary and disturbing. Recent research has revealed cognitive abilities that not only rival human intelligence, but sometimes surpass it entirely. We're talking about animals whose memory and strategic thinking can outperform adult humans in controlled scientific tests. The most stunning example involves something called eidetic memory, or what most people know as photographic memory. In carefully designed experiments, researchers flash numbers on a screen for impossibly brief periods, sometimes just 210 milliseconds, barely enough time for human eyes to register what they're seeing. Adult humans fail miserably at these tests, unable to remember the positions of more than a few numbers, even when given several seconds to study them. Young chimpanzees, however, perform these tasks with almost supernatural precision. They can glance at a screen showing 9 randomly placed numbers for just a fraction of a second, then accurately reproduce the entire sequence on a touchscreen. We're talking about memory feats that seem almost impossible, accomplished by animals that most people dismiss as clever but limited creatures. This isn't just a party trick. The implications are staggering when you consider what this level of cognitive processing means for an animal whose natural environment requires split-second decisions about threats, opportunities, and social dynamics. A chimp can memorize the entire layout of a forest canopy in a single glance, track the locations of dozens of fruit trees across vast territories, and maintain detailed mental maps of social relationships involving hundreds of individuals. But the truly unsettling discovery came when researchers tested chimpanzees in strategic games designed to measure not just memory, but actual intelligence and decision-making ability. In these experiments, chimps competed against each other in games, requiring them to predict their opponent's choices based on past behavior. then adjust their own strategies accordingly. The level of strategic thinking required approaches what we'd expect from sophisticated human game players. The results were humbling for our species. While human players consistently made suboptimal choices and failed to reach theoretical equilibrium states, chimpanzees played nearly perfect games. They demonstrated superior memory for their opponent's previous moves, better strategic adaptation, and more efficient decision-making processes. In essence, chimps outplayed humans at games requiring the exact cognitive skills we pride ourselves on possessing. This raises an uncomfortable question. If chimpanzees possess memory and strategic thinking abilities that exceed our own, what does that mean for their understanding of consequences, relationships, and the impact of their actions? We're not dealing with instinct-driven animals operating on simple behavioral programs. We're confronting creatures whose cognitive sophistication rivals our own, but whose moral framework operates according to rules we're still struggling to understand. The most chilling realization is that this intelligence doesn't make chimps more human-like in their behavior. Instead, it makes their capacity for calculated violence far more disturbing than simple animal aggression. Nothing prepared the scientific community for what Jane Goodall witnessed in the forests of Tanzania during the 1970s. What started as groundbreaking research into our closest living relatives became a front-row seat to warfare so systematic and brutal that it shattered every assumption about animal behavior. The Gome chimpanzee war wasn't just violence. It was organized genocide carried out with a level of strategic planning that would be recognizable to any human military strategist. The conflict began when a unified community of chimps started fracturing along territorial lines. 7 males had begun spending more time in the southern regions of their territory, gradually forming what amounted to a separatist movement. At first, interactions between the northern main group and southern splinter faction remained peaceful, with occasional friendly encounters and normal social behaviors. But something shifted in the group dynamics. The main community began viewing the southern males not as temporary separatists, but as genuine threats to their territorial integrity. What followed was 4 years of systematic extermination that shocked researchers with its calculated brutality and strategic precision. The first attack set the tone for everything that followed. 6 northern males ambushed a single southern chimp, isolating him from any possible help before methodically beating him to the point where his injuries proved fatal. This wasn't random violence or a dominance dispute gone wrong. This was coordinated warfare with a clear objective: complete elimination of the rival faction. The attacks continued with horrifying regularity. Northern chimps would locate isolated southern males and launch coordinated assaults involving multiple attackers. They showed no mercy for old friendships or previous alliances. One of the most heartbreaking incidents involved an elderly male named Goliath, who approached his former companions with friendly gestures and obvious trust. His old friends responded by tearing him apart while he refused to fight back against chimps he still considered allies. One by one, the southern males disappeared. Some deaths were witnessed directly by researchers, while others were inferred from sounds of violent struggles, followed by the discovery of bodies. By the end of the conflict, every single male from the separatist group had been killed or had vanished without a trace. Even females weren't spared, with several being attacked, killed, or forcibly integrated into the northern group. What made this conflict so disturbing wasn't just the violence itself, but the level of planning and coordination involved. Chimps would form hunting parties specifically designed to locate and eliminate targets. They showed remarkable patience, sometimes stalking potential victims for hours before striking. They demonstrated clear understanding of tactical advantages, using terrain and numbers to ensure successful attacks. The systematic nature of the violence forced researchers to confront uncomfortable parallels to human warfare. This wasn't animal aggression driven by immediate triggers or territorial disputes. This was organized conflict with strategic objectives, coordinated tactics, and a clear understanding of the long-term implications of eliminating rivals. Initially, many scientists refused to believe that chimps were capable of such organized brutality without human interference. They blamed Goodall's research methods, particularly the practice of providing food to attract chimps for observation. The argument suggested that competition for these artificial resources had triggered unnatural levels of aggression, but subsequent research demolished this comfortable explanation. Analysis of hundreds of years of chimpanzee observations from multiple sites revealed that human interference had no correlation with levels of violence. Chimps wage war because warfare serves their evolutionary interests, not because humans accidentally triggered their aggressive instincts. The real factors driving chimpanzee violence are far more sober. Population density and the number of males in competing groups predict conflict with mathematical precision. More males plus limited territory equals inevitable warfare, regardless of human presence or interference. Chimps fight because fighting works as a survival strategy, and their intelligence makes them devastatingly effective at organized violence. Understanding why chimpanzees are so much more violent than other great apes requires looking beyond simple aggression to examine the role intelligence plays in their capacity for warfare. Gorillas are certainly powerful enough to wage devastating conflicts, but severe violence remains relatively rare in stable gorilla populations. Bonobos, chimps' closest relatives, have developed societies that emphasize cooperation over conflict. Even orangutans, despite occasional territorial disputes, don't engage in the systematic warfare that characterizes chimpanzee communities. The key difference lies in how intelligence amplifies natural territorial instincts. Chimps don't just fight over resources. They strategically plan campaigns designed to eliminate competition permanently. Their cognitive abilities allow them to coordinate complex group attacks, remember grudges for extended periods, and develop tactical approaches that maximize damage while minimizing risk to themselves. Population studies reveal the mathematical brutality of chimpanzee survival strategies. In environments where chimp populations reach carrying capacity, intergroup aggression becomes the second leading cause of mortality. These aren't random encounters that occasionally turn violent. They're systematic efforts to reduce competition for limited resources through organized elimination of rivals. The intelligence that makes chimps such effective warriors also makes their violence more disturbing from a human perspective. When a lion kills, we understand it as natural predation or territorial defense. When chimps wage war, we see reflections of human conflict that force uncomfortable questions about the nature of violence in intelligent species. Chimps demonstrate clear understanding of psychological warfare, targeting not just physical elimination, but emotional devastation. They attack pregnant females, kill infants in front of their mothers, and seem to take deliberate pleasure in causing maximum psychological trauma. Their intelligence allows them to understand exactly how much suffering their actions cause, yet they continue anyway when it serves their strategic interests. This calculated cruelty extends beyond warfare to everyday social interactions. Dominant chimps will sometimes torture subordinates, not for any immediate practical benefit, but apparently for the psychological satisfaction of asserting control. They understand pain, fear, and submission well enough to manipulate these emotions deliberately. The most unsettling aspect of chimpanzee violence is how closely it mirrors human warfare in its combination of strategic planning, psychological manipulation, and complete disregard for the suffering of designated enemies. Their intelligence doesn't make them more peaceful. It makes them more effective at organized brutality. Yet this same intelligence that drives chimps to wage devastating wars also enables them to form social bonds of remarkable depth and complexity. The cognitive abilities that make them effective warriors simultaneously allow for relationships that can last decades and social structures that rival human communities in their sophistication. Recent research has revealed that chimpanzee friendships operate on timescales that would be impressive even by human standards. Male chimp partnerships can persist for up to 10 years, with roughly half of all documented friendships lasting at least 5 years. These aren't casual associations based on immediate convenience. They're genuine long-term relationships that involve significant emotional investment and mutual support. The foundation of these relationships is grooming, but the behavior extends far beyond simple hygiene maintenance. Chimps use grooming as a form of social currency, investing time and attention in relationships that provide strategic advantage. The amount of grooming between two individuals directly correlates with the strength of their social bond, creating measurable indicators of relationship quality that researchers can track over time. Male chimp friendships are particularly remarkable because they contradict typical patterns of male competition found throughout the animal kingdom. In most species, males compete directly for access to females and resources, making genuine friendship counterproductive to reproductive success. Chimps have evolved a different approach, where strategic alliances between males create competitive advantages that benefit all parties involved. These partnerships involve genuine resource sharing, with valuable commodities like meat being distributed preferentially to close friends. Chimps also provide coalitionary support during conflicts, backing up their allies in disputes with other community members. Having reliable friends can mean the difference between rising in social rank or being relegated to subordinate status permanently. The strategic complexity of these relationships creates intricate social networks that researchers compare to human societies. Chimps must navigate multiple simultaneous friendships while managing conflicts of interest between different allies. They demonstrate clear understanding of social debts, reciprocal obligations, and the long-term consequences of relationship decisions. Perhaps most remarkably, chimps possess the cognitive capacity to maintain detailed memories of past social interactions across extended periods. Recent studies revealed that bonobos and chimpanzees have the longest documented long-term memory of any non-human animal. Test subjects could recognize photographs of former group mates they hadn't seen in over 2 decades, with one bonobo successfully identifying her sister after 26 years of separation. This extraordinary memory capacity enables chimps to maintain complex relationship histories that inform current social decisions. They remember who helped them in past conflicts, who shared resources during difficult times, and who proved unreliable when support was needed. These memories shape ongoing relationships and influence strategic decisions about future alliances. The combination of long-term memory, strategic thinking, and emotional investment creates social structures that approach human complexity. Chimps understand reputation, reciprocity, and relationship maintenance in ways that require sophisticated cognitive processing. They can simultaneously manage multiple friendships while tracking the ever-changing dynamics of community politics. Understanding this level of social intelligence makes chimpanzee violence even more disturbing. These aren't simple animals acting on instinct. They're cognitively sophisticated beings who understand relationships, consequences, and the emotional impact of their actions on others. The question of whether chimpanzees possess theory of mind, the ability to understand that other individuals have their own thoughts, beliefs, and perspectives, cuts to the heart of how we interpret their capacity for both friendship and cruelty. For decades, scientists believed this cognitive ability was uniquely human, separating us from even our closest relatives through our understanding of other minds. Recent research has systematically dismantled this assumption. Chimpanzees demonstrate clear evidence of understanding what others can see, hear, and know. In competitive scenarios involving food access, subordinate chimps consistently choose options that dominant individuals cannot observe, suggesting they understand the difference between their own knowledge and their competitors' awareness. More sophisticated experiments reveal even deeper levels of social cognition. Chimps can understand false beliefs, situations where other individuals hold incorrect information about reality. When shown videos of humans placing objects in containers, then watching those objects being moved without the original person's knowledge, chimps correctly predict where the uninformed person will look for the missing item. This false belief, understanding, represents a crucial milestone in cognitive development because it requires understanding that others can have mental states different from both reality and one's own knowledge. It's the foundation for deception, empathy, and complex social manipulation. The implications are profound when considering chimpanzee violence and relationships. If chimps understand that others have their own mental states, thoughts, and emotions, then their actions carry entirely different moral weight. When a chimp attacks another individual, they're not simply responding to stimuli. They're making calculated decisions while understanding the psychological impact of their behavior. This raises the most uncomfortable question about chimpanzee intelligence. Do they understand suffering the way humans do? When chimps torture victims during warfare, do they comprehend the fear, pain, and emotional trauma they're inflicting? The evidence increasingly suggests they do understand, which makes their capacity for cruelty far more disturbing than simple animal aggression. Jane Goodall initially argued that only humans could commit true evil because other animals lacked the cognitive capacity to understand suffering. This position became increasingly difficult to maintain as research revealed the depth of chimpanzees' social intelligence. If chimps possess theory of mind, understand false beliefs, and maintain complex long-term relationships, then their violent actions must be evaluated through a different moral framework. The most chilling possibility is that chimpanzees are fully aware of the consequences of their actions, but proceed anyway when it serves their interests. They understand pain, fear, and emotional trauma well enough to weaponize these experiences against enemies. Their intelligence doesn't make them more moral. It makes them more effective at calculated cruelty. This cognitive sophistication doesn't excuse human responsibility for tragedies involving captive chimps, but it does explain why these incidents are so devastating. We're not dealing with unpredictable wild animals. We're confronting intelligent beings who understand exactly what they're doing when they choose violence. The case of Travis the chimpanzee represents the inevitable collision between human fantasy and animal reality that occurs when we refuse to acknowledge what these creatures actually are. Travis wasn't born a monster, and his tragic story illustrates the fundamental impossibility of integrating wild animals into human society. Regardless of how much love and care we provide, raised from infancy in a human household, Travis seemed to embody every fantasy people have about domesticating wild animals. He learned human behaviors, participated in family activities, and even appeared in television commercials. His owners genuinely loved him and believed they were providing a better life than he could have experienced in the wild. But love cannot override biology, and intelligence cannot substitute for appropriate social development. Travis was a wild animal whose natural behavioral patterns had been suppressed rather than eliminated. His human family saw what they wanted to see: a gentle, childlike creature who happened to be unusually strong and occasionally unpredictable. The reality was far more complex and dangerous. Travis was a sexually mature male chimpanzee whose natural instincts included territorial aggression, dominance, establishment, and violence as a tool for conflict resolution. His human upbringing had taught him to suppress these behaviors, but it hadn't eliminated the underlying drives that motivated them. When Travis finally snapped, the violence was devastating precisely because it combined human-level intelligence with superhuman strength and natural weapons designed for warfare. He didn't attack randomly or thoughtlessly. He systematically targeted vulnerable areas like face, hands, and genitals with the precision of a predator who understood anatomy and knew how to inflict maximum damage. The tragedy extended beyond the immediate victim to include Travis himself, who was shot and killed by police responding to the emergency call. He became another casualty of human refusal to acknowledge the fundamental incompatibility between wild animal nature and domestic environments. Similar incidents involving captive chimpanzees followed depressingly predictable patterns. Owners who genuinely love their animals convince themselves that affection and good intentions can overcome evolutionary programming. They ignore warning signs, dismiss aggressive behaviors, and maintain dangerous situations until inevitable tragedy occurs. The problem isn't that these chimps are evil or defective. The problem is that they're exactly what evolution designed them to be: intelligent, powerful, and equipped with behavioral programs optimized for survival in competitive natural environments. Their capacity for violence isn't a bug in their programming. It's a feature that has enabled their species to survive for millions of years. Understanding chimpanzee intelligence and social cognition makes it impossible to dismiss their violent actions as simple animal aggression. These are calculated decisions made by creatures who understand consequences, remember relationships, and possess the cognitive tools to anticipate the results of their behavior. Yet, this same intelligence that makes chimps capable of calculated cruelty also makes them deserving of our respect, understanding, and protection. In the wild, chimpanzee populations face unprecedented threats from human activities that push them toward extinction. Habitat destruction, poaching, and human encroachment have reduced wild chimpanzee populations to between 170,000 and 300,000 individuals, with some local populations on the brink of complete elimination. The greatest tragedy would be losing these remarkable creatures because we couldn't find ways to coexist that respect both their intelligence and their fundamental nature as wild animals. Chimpanzees offer us a mirror that reflects both the best and worst aspects of intelligence applied to survival challenges. They show us what sophisticated cognition looks like when it operates according to different moral frameworks and survival strategies. Rather than viewing them as failed humans or dangerous monsters, we need to appreciate chimpanzees as evolutionary masterpieces whose intelligence serves purposes we're only beginning to understand. Their capacity for warfare, friendship, memory, and strategic thinking represents millions of years of adaptation to challenges that shape their cognitive development in directions different from our own. The solution isn't to eliminate the characteristics that make chimps dangerous to humans. The solution is to ensure these magnificent creatures have appropriate environments where their intelligence can operate according to its natural programming. This means protecting wild habitats, ending the illegal pet trade, and developing conservation strategies that acknowledge both their remarkable capabilities and their fundamental incompatibility with human society. Conservation efforts show promise when they work with rather than against natural chimp behavior. Projects that protect large forest territories allow chimps to express their intelligence through natural activities like tool use, complex social relationships, and even controlled territorial conflicts that don't threaten human populations. The future of human-chimpanzee relationships lies in respectful coexistence rather than attempted domestication. These animals deserve our fascination, our research efforts, and our protection. They don't deserve to be turned into pets, entertainment, or surrogate children. Understanding their intelligence should inspire us to ensure they have appropriate environments where that intelligence can flourish according to its evolutionary design. Chimpanzees represent one of evolution's most successful experiments in intelligence applied to social living. The fact that their solutions differ dramatically from our own doesn't make them inferior or defective. It makes them uniquely valuable as examples of alternative approaches to the challenges of survival, competition, and cooperation. Our closest living relatives deserve better than extinction, exploitation, or misguided attempts at domestication. They deserve recognition as the remarkable cognitive achievements they are, and protection of the wild environments where their intelligence can continue to evolve and flourish. The mirror they hold up to humanity shows us not just what we are, but what intelligence can become when it develops along different evolutionary pathways. The choice we face isn't between loving chimps and fearing them. The choice is between respecting them as the magnificent wild creatures they are, or losing them forever to our inability to coexist with intelligence that operates according to different rules than our own. That's a wrap on today's wild journey. But here at the Zoo-phoria show, we're just getting started exploring nature's most incredible stories. Subscribe if you want to keep discovering the shocking, hilarious, and downright unbelievable truths about the animals sharing our planet. Your next favorite animal fact is just one click away.